There are so many things to talk about around death. So many different angles to look at. This could be like a 30-part series, and I still might not get to the thread that you might be here really wanting to dive into. I'm gonna share the thread that is most present, I guess for me, the thread that I feel most serves our space in this moment. And that thread is really around, let me feel, death as teacher. I think if you saw the title of this, you'll see the title is Death as Teacher. Death. I had like a whole long thing written, and of course it got erased, but it's like death as teacher, death as life giver. I want to talk about that. Death as perspective bringer, perspective shifter, death as change agent, death as natural cycle of life, death as not only physical death, but ending death, maybe even a little bit of ego death. Talk a little bit, possibly, I'm not absolutely sure where we're gonna go with this, but I do wanna say before I dive into the topic that we have so much wisdom here in our space. So if you're here on the live with me in the Facebook group, or you're on the YouTube video later on or somewhere else, and you feel to share something, please do. Like, there is so much to this topic, and I know that we as a community hold so much wisdom. And so just so very much open that door to anyone weaving anything in at any time, right? You will have very different experiences than I do with death, maybe either your own impending death or another loved one's death, or other loved ones or close ones facing death, or maybe working with death energy. I know we have death doulas in our space. I know we have a lot of different experiences in our space, and I just invite all of that, and I invite us all to share with each other the different things that are arising for us as I kind of go through this conversation. I would love to start with the question, gut reaction. When I say death, the energy of death is close to you. Just the energy of death, just like the archetypal energy of death. And for some of us, we maybe see the image of Grim Reaper, or for some of us, it's a cold chill that we feel on our skin, or for some of it's a darkness, or it's a gray cloud-like energy. But just, we are literally just sensing into the energy, the archetypal energy of death. And just really quickly, your first reaction, first response. Like if you were to just reach out into the energy of death. And maybe there's so much hesitancy or animosity. I shouldn't even say those words. There's just your gut reaction is, fuck no, Sabrina. That's a valid response. Like, I ain't calling that any energy anywhere near me. Like, that is super valid, and that is totally beautiful. That's your first response, and there's no judgment around your first response. It's just what is kind of you just touching to the raw energy of death, but you're not calling it in, you're not asking it to do anything, you're not asking it to bring death anywhere, you're just touching in. That's it. And what is the response in your body? So I want to read some of these comments from the Facebook Live. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment below, would love to hear. But I'll read some of these and allow some of these shares to possibly open your mind a little bit, right? To possibly like open your mind around death. So maybe we go to a place where death could possibly be something that I've not necessarily thought about. Death could possibly be something different than my own personal experience, and other people's experiences of death is very different to my own experience of death, or other cultures' honoring of death is possibly very different to my own cultural conditioning around death, right? For some cultures, death is as sacred as life. It is as celebrated as birth, right? And so allowing us to go into an expanded way of thinking about it, a way that's beyond our own current beliefs, our own current conditions, our own current maybe family absorbed conditionings around it. So here's some of the words. Fear, unknown, change, arg, light, Carlos Castaneda, freedom. If they're really long, it's sometimes hard for me to read. New cycle is here, and I need to let go of all that is no longer serving me now. Transformation, transition, void, nothing, discomfort, big, rebirth, in solar plexus, magic. This is weird, life-changing, shock kind of feeling that precedes grief, hard to explain. Or else, doom, 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 resistance equals staying the same. Necessary loss, waste. Last year's mystery school workshop on death shifted this for me big time. My gut reaction now is, hey! That's Malia. I love that woman. Fear of losing precious worldly things, my people. Warm, soft, and dark. Overwhelmed, curiosity. Going home. All right, I'm just gonna scroll down. There's so many more, and if you all want to read the comments in the Facebook Live, you can join our group if you're watching from somewhere else, and you can scroll through them. They're beautiful, or maybe look at the comments down in the YouTube video below. But what if we were to allow death as an energy, right? It's just an archetypal energy. It's like lover is an energy, an archetypal energy. Mother is an archetypal energy. Father is an archetypal energy. Warrior is an archetypal energy. Death is an archetypal energy. So just let death just be this archetypal energy that sits out here. So an archetypal energy just is a certain pattern of energy. It has a certain frequency to it. It just exists in our psyches. It exists in our world. But let's just look at it as an archetype, right? So archetype father, right? It's very easy for us to go, okay, cool, father. And you can feel the archetypal energy of that. You can start to put certain characteristics to it. And now let's do that with death, right? So, okay, death is an archetypal energy. It's just an archetypal energy, and it's right here. And what if we were to allow that archetypal energy to be teacher, to teach us the wisdom that it holds, to teach us the wisdom that it holds. And what Malia was referring to in mystery school was we worked experientially and deeply with the wisdom, and we worked on the embodiment of the wisdom that's held in that archetypal energy. And so just for this moment, the wisdom that death holds. And so for those of us here on the live, just asking yourself, okay, all right, what is one piece of wisdom, and if you're watching this on YouTube later, leave this in the comments too. What is one piece of wisdom that death holds, or death has held for me, or I've gained this via the death of my grandmother. I've gained this via the death of a job. I've gained this via the cyclical nature of life-death cycle. I've gained this via the winter of life. I've gained this from death. And I would love to hear. I would also love to hear this. I've got a bunch to share, but this is kind of opening up that door for the wisdom that sits in our space. Okay, so learning to accept my own limitations. Acceptance. I love that one. Acceptance. I love this one too. It's not the end. Childlike curiosity. Liberation, right? Freedom. Oh, this is so fun. I can feel where we're going, and there's this excited energy in me that's like, oh my God, it's happening. Like we're getting there, we're unfolding into it, and all of your comments are adding to it and leading to where we're going. I gained the love of my life through the end of my previous relationship. Learning to trust, and always, I think dawn, thanks Deanne. Learning to trust that dawn always follows darkness. Let go, let be, to let whatever and not hold. Deep grace. I gained remembrance through death. Facing, not avoiding. Following your joy. Integration. Creation. Surrender. Letting go of control. I've gained true purpose by letting my career goals die. Release. Grief is love. Relief and freedom. The invitation to feel raw emotion. Know thyself. Y'all are wise being. The depths of grief and closeness. I gained myself through the deaths of the old me. So, a really quick little story. I facilitate a lot of experiences, right? In person, online, and I guide through altered states of consciousness, through meditation, through embodiment of certain things, through archetypal accessing. And there is something that I do with death a lot that brings in an access point or a doorway for someone to let it rip. And I want to talk about this. So there's a thing that I often invite to come in to practices, and those of you who've done workshops with me or retreats, like when I say this, or you might be going, oh, I know this part, but it's it's a freedom that the energy of an ending gives us, the energy of death gives us, the energy of, here's what it is. I'll share with it what it is, then I'll deepen into it. If this was the last thing you were ever going to do on this earth, how would you do this exercise? If this was the very last thing, how would you leave it all on the table, right? If this was the last time you were ever going to walk into sacred sexual energy, how would you do it? Would you get up out of your chair? Would you be jumping around? Would you be moving? Would there be more fire, more life, more passion, more courage, more ability to dive into the deep end, more letting go, more freedom, more liberation? And every single time I invite that in, there is a deepening in the whole of the space, a deepening. It's this beautiful gift of the archetypal energy of death. It's part of what it gives us. Is it goes, this is reality. You may never do another thing again. How are you going to show up in this moment? If this was the last thing that you were ever going to experience, ever, because you might get hit by a bus when you leave this retreat center, right? Or you might get off of the online workshop and be struck by lightning. This could be the last thing that you ever do. How are you going to do it? And right? So for those of you who are on like workshops or retreat, you're like, oh, that's why you do that. Oh, now I'm on to you, Sabrina. Now the next time you say it, I'm going to just give you the finger and I'm not going to go for it. Now that I've given you like the sneaky little inside secret. But it is a very, 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 very powerful energy to work with, a very powerful energy and reality to bring in. It's a reality we don't live from. We don't live from that reality. We don't live from the reality of waking up every single day unless we have been given a time frame to live typically, or we have someone close to us who has died, is close to death, right? Death isn't always right there. But what if we allowed it to be there right just for right now? Or to the degree we feel to, as often as we feel to. And we were to wake up every morning and go, this might be my last day, what am I gonna do today? This might be my last hour, what am I gonna do in this hour? Every time I come on alive, every time I do one of these, I come on and go, this might be the last time I ever do this. How am I gonna show up? Every time I create a workshop, every time I run a retreat, every time anything, I go into it going, this could be the grand finale. Even if it's something maybe it's a 6 Faces retreat, which I could, this sounds terrible. I could do them with my eyes closed. I've done them so many times. They're all so incredibly different because they just arise and unfold is the way that they unfold, and they create themselves in the moment. But I could go numb on that. I could go numb on that and go like, oh, I've done this a million times, la la la. Never do I ever allow myself to go anywhere near that place, right? And part of what helps me to not go near that place is this invitation of the gift, or not even the gift of death, just the acceptance of the reality that this is not gonna last forever, right? I'm not gonna have this body forever. I'm not gonna have this human experience forever. I'm not gonna have this life forever. I'm not gonna have this relationship forever. I'm not gonna have this career forever. I am not gonna have my babies breastfeeding off my boob forever, right? I'm not gonna have my dog with me forever. And right, if we can, when it feels right and to the degree that it feels right, I'm also not saying like we walk around, right, with this like looming fear of impending death, like, oh my God, and then we just go into like a frozen fear state of like, oh my God, I could die tomorrow. Fuck, what am I gonna do today? The pressure is mounting. It's not that, right? Not that. It's to be, what I'm inviting us to move into is to be in what is for us, each of us is very unique, right relationship with the energy of death. Right relationship with the archetypal energy of death. Oh, it makes me want to cry. So many things change when we come into right relationship with the energy of death, the energy of endings. Endings, it's done. It is done. Here's something wild, I'm shifting gears. Some of you may have heard me say this on a past podcast. This is wild, we're going here. Okay, it might take me a second to explore this and express this. And then I'm gonna circle back to what we were just talking about. So if you're feeling like, you're leaving me on the cliff edge, we'll come back. I often will say, I don't wanna know who you are when you're dating me. I wanna know who you are when you're divorcing me. Now there's a whole bunch of reasons that I say this thing, but for this conversation specifically, that line, that phrase, thinking about things in terms of that is what are your coping mechanisms around endings? Do you need to hate someone to walk away from them? Do you need, right? Like, let's be real about this. Let's just be real for a minute, right? Radical honesty, who cares? Like, let's let it fly. We can be messy, we're together, we're in sacred circle together. We can be real. We can be honest, and we can be raw, and we can be vulnerable, right? Like, what do we need to do in order to walk away from something? We need to get angry, we need to get pissed, we need to create stories about how horrible that person is, or how bad the relationship was, or how much it dimmed my light, and what, right? We need to turn into like, oftentimes to walk away from something, to end something. You know what? Here's a wild, this is a tough one. God, do I get this raw? It's not just intimate relationships. It's not just divorce that we do that in, right? Like, in order to maybe walk away from a group we belonged to, or a circle we belonged to, or, I don't know, anything, a career, a job, to walk away from that, we often have to turn them into the villain, or that group into the villains, right? How many times do maybe we don't need to call ourselves out on this one, because sometimes this is hard to see. This is like shadow work. This is shadow around death. This is our unconscious, our inability to deal with death, our unconscious coping mechanisms that are maybe maladapted, maybe not super healthy, maybe not allowing us to stand in love and truth, right? They allow us to deal with the ending. They allow us to get over it, right? Don't feel your feelings, just move on, power through, keep yourself busy, but whatever it is, turn them into the villain, right? Turn the group, the space, the thing, the person, into the bad guy, so that your heart doesn't hurt, so that we don't have to feel the feels, so that, and I'm just encouraging us again to just be brutally honest with ourselves, radically honest with ourselves, right? One of the toughest things for us to do is to keep a fully open heart during a death or an ending. It is. During a death or an ending or a no. You've probably heard me say that in previous podcasts, right? Is when we have to say no, or we have to walk away from something, or we have to end something, but to stay with a completely open, loving that person, wishing them everything good, right? And wishing yourself everything, like honoring the unfolding of it, honoring like that higher wisdom, the higher truth. So in, let's just say, a relationship ending, I think this is a great example, and most of us can probably relate to it. Most of us have probably had a relationship ending, and maybe it's not an intimate relationship, but even a friend relationship. And just feeling into, can we allow a death to happen without resentment? Can we allow an ending to happen without closure, without contraction, without having to armor up, get tough, shut down, and then walk a different direction? Can we honor an ending, honor a death, fully feel the feels, right? Like to be standing there open-hearted, loving, saying, I must go my separate way. I must go in a different direction. I love you. And I honor the unfolding of this, right? And I will love you forever. Can we do that? Right? When we close mystery school circles, mystery school is a very intimate, long-term program. Immersion this year, women's immersion is a 12-month program. Deep connections get formed. A deep sacred space gets created. These endings are tough. They are death. They are horrific in ways. They bring up our relationship to endings. And a huge component of the facilitating of immersion or of mystery school is to hold this enormous space for the end of it, to hold a space, to create the time, to create the love-filled container for the emotions, the abandonment emotions, the betrayal emotions, the anything that comes up at an end, the closures, the resentment so that I can move on, the new ways that we maybe create a story around things so that we can, well, that wasn't really that great anyways, right? Or whatever it is that we do. So where do we, I guess what I'm doing here is I'm calling us in. And I'm calling us in toward ourselves. And I'm inviting us to honor endings, to honor deaths, to honor change in course. And death in all forms, endings in all forms, to honor it in a way of, can we stick? This is what helps me a lot, is let me go to my soul and the soul of that group or that space or that other person. Let me go up to soul level, like high truth, outside of personality bullshit, outside of little Sabrina inner child. Oh, I'm so sad, I'm losing my whatever is going on, up to high, mature soul self, and go, this is this person's soul's path. And this is my soul's path. And they might be verging, right? Verging? Is that even a word? Diverging? What? I don't even know what the word is that I'm trying to say there. Sorry, fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. They're going in different directions. And honoring that when a soul is crossing over, right? We are not grieving for them. This, I remember hearing this years ago, and this smacked me right between the eyes when I first started doing work around the energy of death. And it was, you are not grieving for them. You are grieving for you. You are grieving for your loss, your want, your desire, your want to keep them here. Now, what if, this is insane, and you might be so fucking pissed at me. And while I'm saying this, I'm also holding so much compassion for our humanness. It is painful. It is, loss sucks. Grief is real. Loss is real. It is heartbreaking, gut-wrenching. It is so intense, and I'm honoring that. So just know that I know I'm bringing fire, and I'm like aiming a sword at all of us, but I'm also holding this humanness of like, yes, of course you're a mess. Of course it's grief-filled. Of course it's so fucking painful. Of course, right? So I'm holding that, but also in the midst of that, get these words right. That is that soul's journey. That is that soul's journey. And who am I? Who am I? Who am I to say it's not their time? Who am I? Who the fuck do I think I am to start to cling and to like grasp and to hold and to go, it's not fair, it's not right for them to blah, whatever I'm doing. Soul level. It's not easy up here. It's not easy up here. Soul level. It's hard. It's so light-filled. It burns to stay up here, right? Who am I? Like, I live so much in that space that when I start to sense death circling around another being who I love or I'm close to or I just know, right? I start to sense death. It's an honoring of this next part of their journey. It's a deep, respectful honoring of this person's next step on their soul's journey. Their soul's journey. That's their journey. Who am I to take that away from them or to judge? That is not where I want that. Who am I to do that, right? While also holding my humanness and going, I don't want to lose my mom. I don't want to lose my fucking mom. I don't want to lose one of my best friends to ALS. I don't want to lose these people, right? But here's the wild fucking part. That's also your soul's journey. My soul's journey is that it's time for me to lose that very good friend of mine. It's going to be time for me, my soul, to lose my physical parents in this physical plane. And that's just what's true. It doesn't diminish the grieving or the pain or the loss in any way. It's both and, right? It's not one or the other. So when we start to come into this higher relationship with death, we start to come into a higher relationship with endings. We start to see the perfection in an ending. We start to see the perfection in the ending of a relationship or the ending of a career or the ending of whatever it is, a place that you lived, the end of a chapter of life. We start to really see and honor the divine matrix of it. We start to live from a place that knows the perfection of it. This is so hard to find words for. We live in that place more, and that place is truer, and that place runs through our blood and our bones more so than my little human self, my humanity that is fucking sad, right? Is sad and wants to just hold on and will do crazy shit to hold on. Will make bad decisions because it doesn't want to feel loss. How many of us just, you can type a comment, you can just put your hand up, or you can just go like, oh yeah, I gotta confess to that one. You just confess to yourself in some way. You can hit an emoji button. You can, well, however you want to own this, but how many of us have made bad decisions? And usually hindsight's 20/20, right? Because we couldn't let go. Because we couldn't let go. We couldn't let go because the loss that we were going to have to face, the change, the transformation that we were going to have to face was too great. And so we didn't make a soul decision. We didn't live from that higher level place of that high level relationship to endings, to death. We weren't in that place. We were more in like egoical place, selfish human place. And we were like, no, I'm gonna stay in this relationship. No, I'm gonna keep living at home because I don't wanna like lose. No, I'm gonna just hold on. I'm gonna cling on, right? And maybe even to the point where we start to get sick, right? Or like all hell starts, like life tsunami starts to erupt in our lives until we go, okay, now it's too painfully loud. And now we can make this decision that is an ending. Now we can step into this decision that is an ending. Whew. Wow. How are you all feeling at this point? Just one of those moments of like, okay, whew, that was kind of full on. And so just taking like a minute, we won't even go a full minute, but just a few moments to just catch our breaths and to kind of recalibrate and to let all of that sink in. I want to bring this around to one more thing. There's so much I want to share here. Whew, and it brings so much emotion to me. This is very, very present in my life. I think some of you may have seen some of those posts on Instagram about just how present this is in my life, in very physical, tangible, real world, in relationships in my life. But the tears are coming from, and the emotion is actually coming from like this way of living that is, I have a friend. I'll share this story. Here's how I'll go into this piece, and then there's maybe one more piece that I can build on top of that, and we'll end on that. So I have a very, very dear, very, very close friend, a very wise woman in my life. I don't consider very many beings having actually made it into elder, like wise man, wise woman, grown elder energy, and this being a very much elder energy. Lived with this person for a while, so very, very close relationship. And we're having a conversation the other day, and she's diagnosed with ALS, and there is no cure for that. That's maybe 2 years to live or less, don't know. And very, very spiritual, very centered, very kind of a person, very wise person. And we're having this conversation, and the words that I use, you will all who've been hanging out for a while, you will have heard me use these words, living like so close to the bone, living, the other term I use, like living on the edge, living so close to the bone, living on the edge. And I haven't had these conversations with her necessarily. And the other day she goes, the gift in this is I have to be right on the money, like right on the money, like right on the razor's edge, right on the razor's edge of truth in every moment, right? Truth in every moment. Like when death is that close, right there, right? It's every moment I'm right on the razor's edge. right, I'm living so close to the bone. And so death as this giver of life, like some people don't start to truly live until death is right there. Don't start to truly live. Don't start to truly live from the bone, live on the razor's edge. I'm going for it. All the shit falls away. The shit falls away. The shit that doesn't matter falls away. It literally is like a sword that just slices through the shit we tell ourselves. The bullshit stories. I'll get to that tomorrow. I'll do that later on. No big deal. I can waste the whole day. I don't know. Whatever, right? It's, to me, I call it living from soul, living from soul, living. And we can live that way without death looking at us, without a death sentence, without being told we have X amount of time to live. We can live, we can choose right now to live from that place, to live from such deep truth within our beings, such deep truth, such deep truth, such deep truth, right? We get to do that. We get to do that. Here's the story I'll end on. So I said I was going to build on this. And I also said at the beginning, I said, I'll come back to this. And this is me coming back to way back then. I'll circle back around to this. There was a guy who was offered a job in real estate. And he was like, oh, this makes financial sense. This will be good for, building my whatever portfolio. This will be, connections and yada, yada, yada. All of these rationales around this is really good. And a friend of mine, this is very recent, a friend of mine who's also standing very much in death space. And we're really, we've even this sounds kind of crazy, but we've even brought in the energy of death into our relationship, mine and this person's relationship of just if this was our last day, what would we do? If this was our last month, what would we do? If this was our last year on earth, what would we do? Now, this isn't new news, right? This is out there all the time. People oftentimes say, if you want to find your purpose for today, your purpose for this hour, your purpose for a week, your purpose for next month, your purpose for next year, just call in death and go, well, if this is my last hour, well, how would I spend it? If this was my last week, how would I spend it? If this was my last month, my last year? And you kind of have to massage all of those, right? Because they all shift. I know that my brain goes well, if I really truly only have 1 hour left to go, it would be very different than if I'm planning out, okay, if this was my last month, it would be different, right? It's a little bit longer term plan. So just hold all of that as best you can without your brain totally melting down and going I can't handle that, right? Again, you call it in when you feel to, and you just come into right relationship and to the depth and to the degree that you feel to and is right for you. But back to the real estate offer, the real estate job offer. So my friend, partner, we're in whatever we want to call this man, he says to his friend, who's the real estate potential guy, he says, dude, what if you had a year to live? Would you do that job? And his friend sits and he goes, fuck no. I, in no way, shape, or form, want to be selling real estate. It's not who I am. It's not who I got nothing against real estate, nothing against any of that. It's not me. So he comes back to the next day and he goes, dude, that was the greatest gift you could have ever given me, was to give me perspective. You gave me perspective. And in giving me perspective, it allowed me to get to my truth. I couldn't get to my truth because what was being overshadowed by my truth was all of this. It makes sense. It'll look good on paper. But in my core, I have zero desire to do that. I could do it for a year. How many of us have heard ourselves say that? Oh, I could do this for a while. That, for me, that's one of my red flags. If I'm I could do this for a week, probably shouldn't be doing it at all there, sunshine. For me, that's one of my red flags. So, wow. I'm going to be opening up a program. I haven't talked about this anywhere other than the 120 members in Living Reunion. That's it. I've shared in there, but haven't spoken about this anywhere. And it's a program, Living on the Edge. It's a program, Living on the Edge. And it's a kind of a membership of sorts. We're going to get together every single month, and we're going to hold this energy that allows us, we're going to do practices together, and we're going to work on all the shadow stuff that gets in the way of us living on the edge, like living close to the bone, living from truth. It's the thing I'm most excited about opening up and creating and holding space for. We'll do that in June, so probably like 2 weeks from now. You'll start to see things around. If you are not subscribed to sabrinalynn.com, that's probably where we'll announce it. We'll share on Instagram here in our Facebook group. I'm sure I'll talk about it on more YouTube videos, but for any of you who are like, wow, like how do I? Oftentimes it helps to be around others who live from that deep truth, others who live from a real depth of integrity within themselves. And so creating a space where we are all in that kind of energy vortex together, and it kind of holds us to the bone, to the razor's edge, to our truth. I'm excited about it, and just the practices around it. So anyways, that's just like a little sneak peek, a little preview to what's coming. I'm so grateful to all of this, to conversations that we have, to everyone. You all inspired this conversation by your shares on the Instagram posts and the Facebook posts and in the Facebook group of around like, yeah, let's talk about death. And I was kind of like, anyone want to do a live on death? Yeah. And you all supported in like such huge, beautiful ways with your shares and your weavings of different threads to go into. And so I just appreciate that. And I appreciate our community, and I appreciate what we do together. Feels like these lives will be on a more regular basis, more regular YouTube videos, more regular podcasts. I feel like we're shifting. I feel like I'm shifting gears a little bit into more of this, sounds weird, the Sabrina Lynn energy versus the ReWilding for women energy. And so just this open space to all genders, everyone on the gender spectrum is so incredibly welcome to all of this stuff that's being created. It's less about reclamation of the feminine and more about, well, exactly what we talked about, living from truth, living in that fullness, living close to the bone, and opening up to our full potential, like really the potential that resides within. And of course that has to do with reclamation of the feminine and reclamation of the masculine and the union between the two of them. And it has to do with shadow work, and it has to do with like destiny line work, true north work. And that's some of the stuff that we're going to be diving into in that membership that's coming up. So yeah. All right, I will see you when I see you, where I see you, and how I see you. So much love to you.